Welcome to the July 9th, 2024 City Council meeting. Please stand for the invocation by Vice Mayor Feraldi, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather and serve your people. I pray that we remember that they are yours and that we are here to serve them. Thank you for the opportunity to be in this place and do your work. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's City Council agenda is divided into 4 sections: consent agenda, public hearing, public comment, and general business. The first section is consent agenda. This section includes routine items, and all items must be approved by one vote. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay. You can go ahead and vote, please.
Councilmember Dolan? Yes. Councilmember Helgeson?
Yes.
Councilmember Mischens?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
The motion passes.
The next section is public hearings. This section includes all public hearings as required by law or as council may direct. Staff will make a presentation. Comments will then be solicited from the public. An individual speaker shall have 3 minutes to speak. If the speaker represents a group, the speaker shall have 5 minutes. A speaker representing a group shall identify that group at the beginning of his or her remarks, and a group may only have one spokesperson. Each speaker shall clearly state his or her name and locality of residence. Upon the conclusion of public comments, the public hearing will be closed and the matter will be referred to council for deliberation. Consideration of adopting an ordinance changing a certain area located at 1101 5th Street from B4 Urban Commercial District to B5 General Business District. Staff will provide a brief summary of the request. Ms. Rachel Fresheisen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and members of council. The purpose of the petition, as stated, is to rezone the property from B4 Urban Commercial to B5 General Business Districts. The subject property is located at 1101 5th Street. The structure was built in 1949 and was previously used as an auto repair and body shop. And the property is located at the intersection of 5th, Monroe, and Park. The property is recommended for neighborhood commercial on our future land use map. These areas are intended to consist of primarily office, retail, personal service, and restaurant type uses that are scaled and designed to be compatible and serve their immediate neighborhood. Patrons can walk, bike, or take a short drive to reach their everyday goods and services. The properties are included in the area covered by our 5th Street Corridor Master Plan, which was adopted by City Council in May of 2006. The purpose of the plan was to provide a vision and strategies for the revitalization of 5th Street. The master plan provides a vision of a revitalized corridor that is walkable and meets the needs of its surrounding neighborhood. Several sections of the plan highlight why B5 and the expansion of automotive uses would not be appropriate for the area. Specifically, the requested B5 district is our least restrictive and our most intense commercial district, and that the abundance of automotive uses that previously dominated this area should not be expanded. This petition proposes to rezone from B4 to B5, and B4 and B5 may sound very similar, and in some ways they are. Both allow for a number of commercial uses, with many uses being permitted in both districts. However, there are some distinctions that are worth noting. These descriptions are from our city's zoning ordinance. As you can see, the B4 district is designed to promote a mix of residential, commercial, and other operations, which is the aim of the 5th Street Master Plan. And most importantly, the mix should be compatible amongst those uses. That is why the B4 district does not permit some of the more intense uses that would be allowed by B5. Those uses would not be well suited for the style of development we have on 5th Street, where we have neighborhood scale, commercial, civic, institutional, and residential uses all in close proximity. The B5 district is geared toward more of a commercial use rather than a mix, and is described as one that is intended for uses that require larger sites and can produce substantial nuisance effects. It's worth noting that the current B4 zoning can allow the proposed use of auto repair by conditional use permit, whereas B5 would allow this and other uses by right. The zoning ordinance also requires that when we were making rezoning decisions, council must consider all of the uses that would be allowed in the requested zoning district and whether that district is more appropriate than the current. B5 allows uses such as towing service yards, lumber yards, industrial equipment rental, warehousing, and other uses that allow outdoor storage. These uses are contrary to the Fifth Street Master Plan and are not compatible with the area. Fifth Street has seen a lot of investment and positive change in the past 20 years, and that is a direct result of council's commitment and vision in adopting and following the Fifth Street Master Plan, as well as the commitment of the private sector who took notice of that vision and agreed that this is an area worth investing in. The B4 zoning is a key component of that plan. The B5 district, including those uses that I mentioned, is not appropriate in this setting. It's not just about whether the auto body use should be allowed, it's also whether towing yards, industrial equipment rental, and things of that nature fit into Fifth Street, because approval of a rezoning such as this can absolutely open the door to those things. The Planning Commission recommended denial of this petition at their May 22nd meeting, and I'll be happy to answer any questions after your public hearing.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll call you back up with questions. Is there, would the petitioner like to make a presentation? Okay.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I'll be honest, I thought this is a little more difficult than what I thought. I have to tell you, as I was preparing this, I happened to think about July 4th has come through and the feeling that pretty much permeated our forefathers to draft a resolution. And it occurred, I was trying to think about what they were going through. And it occurred to me, to a certain extent, I'm feeling a little of that. When a government entity decides that they're going to step in and they're going to tell you that we don't want you doing business the way you're doing business. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that it's not part of our plan. We want you to change. I somehow equate it to taking a draft horse and we're going to turn it into a petting pony, something that it wasn't meant for. That facility has been automotive repair for over 80 years. And in that 80 years, I have to believe that we were, and it was, a good neighbor. It was part of the fabric of that neighborhood. There aren't many businesses that can say that they've been able to last 80 years doing basically the same thing. And yet, there's a request, they decided to change it. Mr. Kerr owned that property for over 40 years. And to be honest with you, I believe that he was a good neighbor while he operated that business. At one point in time, I was downtown and I commented about the fact that he tended to shovel the walks well beyond his business. And he picked up trash every day along that. And I started teasing him about it, and he said, let me tell you something about being a business downtown in that area. You're not just a business, you're a neighbor, and you have to act like one. Well, I believe that we can continue to do that. I think we continue to be part of that community. We're not looking for anything special. We don't need development money. We don't need to do remodeling or changing anything around about the structure other than cleaning it up. We have the opportunity, turnkey. We can do it ourselves with your support. I'm reminded when speaking with the Planning Commission, they made a comment that They want to turn it back into, they want to turn the neighborhood back into what it was in its heyday. I agree. We were an automotive repair business, and we'd like to continue that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will call you back up with any questions. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this project or this request?
Good evening, council members. How's everybody doing? Good. I'm in favor because of two things. One, I'm across the street from Mr. Kerr, and I took the building over in 2015. And so I went to the planning board just a couple of weeks ago, and they denied, and here we are now. The issue I have is that in 2015, I took my building over. It was zone B6. So that means auto sales. So when I went down and to get my certificate, they said, you couldn't sell cars, Mr. Hubbard. I said, why? Because it's not zoned. I said, really? The last tenant has a dealer license that doesn't expire to the end of 2015. So why can't I? So they pushed me off. So three years later, I come down and ask the city council, could I sell cars just like the other guy? And city council denied it. The issue that I have is that I have a document here that says in 2015, my glasses on, current zoning is B6, proposed zoning is B4. Please be advised the Lynchburg Planning Commission will hold a meeting Wednesday, September the 23rd, 2015 at 4 p.m. in the City Council chambers, first floor. City Hall, 900 Church Street, to hear interest parties relative to reviews and proposed revisions of the Lynchburg zoning ordinance. As part of the review and proposed revisions, there are proposed amendments being suggested that city zoning map, the map amended, including the change of the above reference, property zoning designation from its current zoning of B6 to B4. All interest parties are invited to attend the public hearing and to comment on proposed changes. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning Commission will consider adopting each item advertised in the legal notice published Tuesday. City Council is now tentatively scheduled to hold a public hearing on the above item on November 10, 2015. So, City Council and the Planning Board tried to change the code in 2015 from B6 to B4 after I took over the property in January. So the problem I have is we have some corruption here. And if City Council don't really make an adjustment to this, then we know where we are. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor?
I would say I'm the neighbor that the gentleman is speaking about earlier. My father purchased property at 1006 4th Street, not far from that building, in 1958. And I do remember as a young girl, and across the street near where there's the Elks Lodge. Mr. Kerr owned a building there too. And quite often you would see him. There was a little store there, convenience store that we would go down every day, and Mr. Kerr would be out there in the parking lot sweeping up. He would also be removing snow, and it's always been a good neighborhood. There were a lot of businesses. I'm 52, so there were a lot of businesses on 5th Street back when I was a child, quite a bit more than there are now. And I would just like to say that it worked out before, and I think it could work out again. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Is Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Yes. And again, I forgot to have you speak, state your name, please, when you come to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Yvette Harris, and I am the Legacy Museum of African American History Board of Directors Vice President. The board and the members would like to thank the City Council for the opportunity to speak this evening regarding the request to rezone 1101 Fifth Street from B4 to B5, or to allow the conditional use permit for the property. In 1997, the two-story Victorian house located at 403 Monroe Street was purchased, and over $300,000 was raised to turn this house into a museum. The Legacy Museum of African American History was opened in June 2000 to host cultural and educational programs for the community. In over 24 years, this museum has held programs to highlight African American excellence in arts, sciences, humanities, and public policy. This year, we have partnered with Amazement Square and the Ann Spencer Museum to present youth-centered programs focused on the history and the resilience of the Tuskegee Airmen. Later this month, we will be opening our latest exhibit entitled Revolutionary Witness for Justice. I say this to say that the Legacy Museum is aligned with the Fifth Street Corridor Master Plan, which expresses protecting the historical buildings and developing a safe and beautiful environment for daily enjoyment and social interaction. Rezoning 1101 Fifth Street to B5, or even allowing a conditional use permit for the property, will jeopardize this portion of the plan. There's already one auto body shop in operation and another facility across the street for sale. The Legacy Museum and the Fifth Street CDC Board do not want to see Fifth Street return to an industrial zone of auto body shops lining the streets. We are requesting that the City Council denies the petition to rezone or even allow a conditional use permit for this property. At this time, if allowed, since I am the spokesperson for the Legacy Museum of African American History, I would ask that other people that are here in support of denying this permit to stand. We would like to, at this time, thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Okay. Again, please state your name when you get to the podium, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, Vice Mayor. My name is Alvin Elliott. I'm president of the Fifth Street Community Development Corporation. And we have been working over the years, and I stand in opposition to the proposed zoning change, primarily because we've been working over a number of years to rehabilitate and revitalize the Fifth Street corridor. As you've probably seen in the master plan, we have proposed businesses and residential development along the corridor that would be family friendly, that would serve not only commuter traffic coming up the corridor, but also residents of the adjacent areas, College Hill, Timbridge Hill, and Garland Hill, those three communities, as well as others. Historically, the Fifth Street corridor has been the hub of activity, social life, religious worship, everything to the African American community, and a source of pride for the African American community. As it is right now, we feel that that is possibly being jeopardized, that once you open up that door for a body shop now, it may be a salvage yard or something later or something else. And Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, we believe would be a source of pride for not only the African American community, but the city at large. Other cities I have gone to, they will designate an area in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King and then junk it up with, unsavory establishments after doing so. And the city of Lynchburg has been a good partner for the community. They've invested a lot of money in refurbishing the streetscapes. The 3 phases of the construction that have occurred so far, they've done a fantastic job. Hopefully phase 4 from Taylor Street to the Martin Luther King Bridge will begin soon. And rehabilitate that area, revitalize life along that community. That is a gateway into the city. There's also work being done to do structural improvements and aesthetic improvements on the Martin Luther King Bridge. All that is going to make it a beautiful gateway into not only the 5th Street corridor, but downtown. Downtown, not so long ago, looked desolate, especially on weekends. There was no life visible there. Now that's changed, and I believe almost to the point of saturation. And we feel that the growth of downtown will occur up the 5th Street corridor. And as the city is growing from the downtown in that direction, and improvements are being made to beautify the city from the Martin Luther King Bridge toward downtown, that it's important that we not make any changes that would undermine the efforts of the master plan, that would make it an unattractive area. City Council has approved a lot of investment in the area, and we feel that as things continue to grow in that area, that it would be a worthwhile investment and be a source of pride for the entire city of Lynchburg. So for that reason, I ask that you not change the zoning restrictions along the 5th Street corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak in opposition? You better run. No, I appreciate that. Please state your name when you get to the podium.
Yes, Hunter Dawson. Nice to meet you guys again. I think I seen you about 6 months ago, earlier this year. Pull my notes super quick. All right, I think it's first, I think you know who I am. Don't need to introduce myself. Background. So background, Liberty Law, graduate 2016, opened up Car Commander. Hopefully you like it. I want to focus on that property real quick. 1212 is not far from this property. It's important to focus on how that property was before I came in here and purchased that property. That property is exactly what the people before me just spoke about. They don't want it to look like. That property was a junkyard, in fact. Everyone here was an eyesore. They hated that property. And what's ironic is the person with a lease-to-own lease to this 1101 5th Street is Marvin Marcia, that the Kerrs gave the lease-to-own to, knowing that it couldn't be a body shop, but they did it anyways. For whatever reason, that's their concern. So it's not, I don't want the community to think it's the Kerrs, right? Because the Kerrs will not be operating this facility. As of now, they don't have a legal right to be there. He has a true lease to own, is my understanding. So he was the tenant at 1212 Park Avenue for 15 years, in which you guys seen the destruction and all the cars everywhere, junkyard, pulled apart, all over the place. The kudzu all over the big storage fence and all of that. It was just a mess. And what you see they've done here is just smoke and mirrors. They just want to clean it up real quick so you get approval and then destroy it. And there's nothing you can do about it. And as they say, it's the Martin Luther King Boulevard. Can I speak? Okay. Can you please not interrupt me? Thank you. I just want to make sure we got order. Sorry. There's a lot of interruptions to the Planning Commission. But anyway, so they just cleaned that up real quick. But the question is, if they were truly going to do a good thing, why wouldn't they do it the last 15 years? Why all of a sudden would you clean it up now, right? And then you got to dig back a little deeper. He crossed this border illegal. He's not a United States citizen. He could be deported at any time. That's a real thing. And the last thing you want, you got to pull his tax records. He hasn't paid anything to the city at all. So I've had 2 people stop in my lot, say they're peddling drugs down there. I mean, I'm just telling you what people are saying. I'm not making any accusations, just telling you what people are saying. People are coming by saying, is my car here because he's taking my car, he's not giving it back because he's done work, there's insurance fraud, there's all kind of things going on. And I just don't think that is what we want on Martin Luther King Boulevard, the main corridor coming downtown. I spoke with an architect in the city, and along that corridor, they have plans to build elaborate buildings. They're just waiting on them to push the button. And this would not benefit that. That would hold them off, and they would go to other parts of town. I think it's, and I'm out of time? Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Okay, would the petitioner like to make a rebuttal? You have 5 minutes to come back and speak if you'd like, but you don't have to. It's up to you. You're not on the list to speak. Sorry. You're okay? All right. Are there any voicemails?
There are none.
Okay. The public hearing is now closed and the matter rests with council. Yes. Vice Mayor Frawley?
I have a series of questions that will respectfully dismiss those advocating and those opposed with respect. But with the series of questions, I think you'll understand where I'm going with this. When did the property, if you want to respond from your seat, that's fine with me, but it does matter to me. When the property ceased operating as its original purpose, what happened?
So when a use is non-conforming, or some people call it grandfathered, it can operate for 2 years. And if it ceases, well, so it can operate indefinitely, but if it ceases to operate for 2 years, the non-conforming status is gone. It cannot go back to the non-conforming
So
status.
are we beyond the grandfathering period of 2 years?
Yes, my understanding from conversations with the zoning administrator is that prior to this, it had been vacant prior to 2015. And because there was no record of any kind of auto body being done within the past 2 years from the time that the permit came in, there was no non-conforming status given to the body shop portion. They do have non-conforming status on a car wash, which they have been operating in the building.
Do we have an official zoning, I just had the phrase in my head, determination to prove that it has not been used in that time period?
I mean,
Did the city conduct a zoning, determine if in fact in those
I don't know
9
that there's
years
a
it hasn't?
formal document stating that, but in Mr. Henry's research, he did not find anything that would indicate that it was non-conforming for the use of auto body.
So for the form of auto body, we're beyond the grandfathering period. All parties knew that walking into this point. So regardless of whatever plan may exist, Fifth Street, Tyriana, Parks, I'm trying to just pull, I'm not even thinking about plans or anything other than simply this specific property, the use it's being requested to be changed for is, everyone knew walking into this that it's beyond its grandfathering period.
I don't want to speak for
At least
the
it
tenant
could have
or
been
anything.
found. It could have been found pretty clearly.
Correct. I mean,
That solves it for me. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Dr. Wilder?
I'd like to move for denial of the petition to rezone 1101 Fifth Street and from B4 to B5. I'm in support the desires from the Planning Commission.
Do I have a second? A second to deny, for his motion?
Second.
Your second? Okay. Do you want to speak to?
Yes, just in agreement with the planning, with the Fifth Street Corridor Master Plan, is not in line with that. Also with the request from the Fifth Street, the CDC Planning Commission group that also was not in support of that, as well as the Legacy Museum and several other residents has contacted me. They're not in favor of changing that. They want to be more so residential friendly, and they feel like that new spot would not fit to what the plan is and doesn't go along with the Fifth Street Master Plan. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
It's interesting because I disagree with Councilman Wilder, although he's motioning for it, but arriving at a conclusion in a different way. I'm coming from, regardless of the plan, regardless of any government documents, simply but the zoning. And the understanding that the grandfather period has passed, it's beyond its, the properties beyond the stipulations of that time period, and therefore, I think there has to be a overwhelming reason why it would have to see such a spike in zoning. And so I'm trying to approach it strictly from that, and no other plan, no other consideration, but strictly that. Amen.
Councilwoman Dolan, had you made a comment? You had a comment you want to make, or no? Had you had your hand up?
No.
Okay. Councilman Helgeson?
Thank you. You know, as I've been on council for about 20 years, and I've seen lots of these plans that have come forward. Typically what happens, you have a comprehensive plan that's this thick. You have the future land use map that's on there. You have a Fifth Street corridor study. They're big documents. With these big documents, you have nice grandiose pictures and ideas of what the area could be. The problem is when you do a zoning ordinance rewrite and you do some of this future land use map and a new comprehensive plan and a new Fifth Street plan, what happens many times is all of a sudden buried deep in these hundreds of pages of the document says, we're going to change the ability for you to use your property like you wanted to. That's where even the discussion of grandfathering is happening, is because the city had a meeting on a planning and looked at the beautiful pictures, and city council looks at it. You read these documents, and typically the comprehensive plan is not parcel specific. But in this case, it's becoming that way. And so with that being the case, and understanding how it got to there, and we hear the gentleman saying that this has been operating for 80 years as an auto body repair shop or an automotive repair shop. And I hear of others. I hear Mr. Hubbard, who said his place was being utilized for auto repair. I know the whole Fifth Street corridor. I used to live right down there for a lot of years. Recognized Julian Adams and Adams Motor Company and all these automotive places. You know, you look back when he mentioned 80 years, I'm kind of thinking, when was the car even invented? Almost been working on cars ever since Henry Ford invented the Model T. And so with that being the case, and you see how sometimes these big documents translate to really negative repercussions on that individual property owner. With that, I don't like that. When you're revitalizing an area, how do we revitalize an area? Is it city government just spending more taxpayer money? Or is it individuals willing to invest their capital? Individuals that are going to hire employees and hire people. So with that being the case, I think there's lots of good uses, especially when you see the fact that this has been used for 80 years as an automotive shop and been owned by the same person for 40 years. As Mr. Hubbard pointed out, sometimes there's these meetings with, again, these big, thick documents, but within these big, thick documents, there's one page that says, oh, by the way, we're going to go from a B6 to a B4. And you don't know what a B6 to a B4 is. You're citizens. You're trying to run a business. You're trying to think that the city isn't going to intentionally try to put you out of business. Then what happens when you don't operate it for a period of time because of COVID or some other kind of thing that forces businesses to shut down? And now there's no grandfathering or something. Well, I don't think anybody would like it if you're living in your house that's zoned for residential. Then all of a sudden, one day you discover that the city had a meeting and there's a big document that says you can't live in your house anymore. And they say, well, you're grandfathered as long as you live there. And then you go on vacation or you take a trip and you come back and your house is boarded up. I don't like that. So I'm going to make a substitute motion that we approve the rezoning to B5.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Do you want to speak to your motion?
Nothing else to add to it. I think I've said what's, when you look at these things, when you look at how it's been utilized for a lot of years, you recognize that people that have invested capital, and hopefully, I can appreciate Mr. Dawson's comments, but what we're doing is not individual. We're not looking at who the specific person is. The rezoning is about land use. Rezoning is about the use of the property. This is a land use decision that says we go from how it somehow got changed to a B4 back to what it was before, even though before it was a B6, but the institutional zoning ordinance rewrite changed the B6 to now a B5. It includes the same item there. So I think this will make sense, and I hope they can grow and thrive and hire folks and have a good investment on the Fifth Street corridor.
Councilman Missions, do you want to speak to your second?
I do, Madam Mayor. Thank you. First thing I was trying to get to earlier was I did have a question for Rachel. Rachel, you don't need to get up. You can sit tight. Your choice, whatever you want to do. So it's current use as a car wash and detail shop. Is that non-conforming?
Yes.
So-
They had documentation for that use within the allotted time period. They did not have documentation for the auto body.
So we're currently, she did say that they had the document, sir, she did say they have the documentation in the allotted time period that shows, that allows for the non-conforming use of a car wash and detail shop. And what zoning would that require for it to be conforming?
B5 would permit it by right. That's,
Okay,
That
so
would-
when I think about this, thank you, Rachel. You pretty much answered. That's the only thing I was looking for. I appreciate it. When I think about this and I look at this, I just looked up the website for this business and they updated it 6 weeks ago, right? So they're operating in a non-conforming use for what would be a B5 requirement to get it by right, which means that it doesn't matter what decision we make tonight. What we're saying is, the way that I see this is we're literally going to look at these folks and say, you know what, you can continue with your non-conforming use of that property, but you just can't do a body shop because we said so, right? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't really understand that. If it would be a B5 for a car wash and detail shop, then they should be able to operate and use it as a body shop for a B5. And what does a car wash and detail shop do? They make your car look good. What does a body shop do? They make your car look good after you've been in a wreck. It's pretty much a similar thing. I would imagine adding that to it, they're probably also going to continue doing car wash and detail. Because there are a lot of body shops that do that and complement the body work with that. And I see more upsides than downsides because it's just going to bring more jobs to that area. It takes more people, it takes more skilled trades, and it's going to probably provide more revenue for the city operating as a body shop because the revenue from doing body work is higher than that of doing car wash and detail. And quite frankly, I think that there's an opportunity here to bring in a basically a bigger employer and more business to that area of town. And, when I look at, I understand the master plan, right? Well, pretty sure that our wastewater treatment plant across the street is non-conforming. That's not going anywhere because we got to pump water. We got to pump water to all the houses across the city and all the fire hydrants, right? So that's why I seconded this. I think it's a good move. I think it's a good opportunity for these folks to invest in a business they've already got, expand what it's able to do. Like I said, they're already operating at something that would take a B5 by right. I will absolutely support them being able to continue doing this work.
Dr. Wilder?
Yes, thank you. I do not support the substitute motion. The CDC committee is a committee of residents of the area, also of stakeholders, and they are not in favor of this change, so I support the CDC committee. Thank you. They are the ones who live there and have a stakeholder interest there. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else before we vote?
Or that you want a resident of the community? Oh, yes, sir.
No. Do you want to speak to the substitute motion?
When you ask for speakers?
Right, I know, but we closed the public hearing, so.
Anyway, yes. There's a conditional use permit also with this zoning, right?
No, this is just a rezoning request.
Just a rezoning. What I see on Fifth Street, right down from Mr. Thornhill's statue, there's a building that's been sitting there for the last 15, 20 years, falling apart. And on the right side going down Fifth Street, I guess it's an old TV repair shop. It's been boarded up for the last 15, 20 years. So if we can get somebody on Fifth Street, like Mr. Hubbard and this guy here, he cleaned up that spot. I saw him out there planting trees and doing landscaping and trying to make it look better the other day. And I would say he could use this property as a B5. Now, when Fifth Street began to develop the way we wanted to, I'm sure some of these will move on. But for right now, let's keep generating revenue for this area. And maybe we can get somebody in that brick building on the corner of, I believe, is Harrison and Fifth. Get that thing cleaned up so we can get life, really get life back on Fifth Street. That's what we need. So I'll be voting in favor of it, B5.
Before I call a vote, I'll just give my thoughts. To the petitioner, and this will be for the substitute motion to approve the request. I appreciate what you said about our founding fathers and their intent for what you stated. And I also think it's important that we remember that our founding fathers also said a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And what we've also heard tonight is from the people. That group right there are the people who live over in that part of the town, of the city, who know the history of that part of the city, who have stories that I certainly don't know. I don't know if they're stories you know. They know where that master plan came from. They know why it came. They know it wasn't from the government. The steering committee that came, that I believe we were was spoken on earlier today, came out of the desire of that part of our city and what they wanted to see it evolve into. And the government just honored the request of the people, because they decided that they didn't want it to be what it once was anymore. They wanted to see Fifth Street revitalized. So the master plan was developed for the people, and the government has helped that process along. So while I totally respect what you're saying, and you're right, we also have to honor what the people have asked us to do. And so when that group stood up here, I want to honor that, because they're speaking to a piece of history that we need to honor, and that's what they're asking. And I think a lot of what has been shared, and then the concerns that have been shared about the specific location and moving to a B5. And Mr. Taylor, I respect you immensely, and but what was shared on one of the slides is that going to a B5 gives unlimited uses, and that's the concern, because a B4 has restrictions, and some of the concerns that were stated is you go to a B5 and the unlimited uses are the concerns that can be abused. And that seems to be what the people are concerned about, and the risk that it poses to the vision that they're looking to see in Fifth Street. So that is where my vote is going to go tonight, is to honor what the people want and what we have voted to help them get. And I'm just trying to follow along that master plan that started years before I came along. So it's a no disrespect to you and your business, because you do have a right as a business owner for what you want, but I'm going to vote with the people. So let's go ahead and vote, please. We're voting on the substitute motion first, please.
Councilmember Dolan? No. Councilmember Helgeson?
Yes.
Councilmember Mischins?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilder?
No.
Vice Mayor Feraldi? No. Mayor Reed?
No.
The motion fails.
Okay, so let's go to the original motion, which was to deny the request to rezone from B4 to B5. Go ahead and vote, please.
Councilmember Dolan? Yes. Councilmember Helgeson?
No.
Councilmember Mischins?
No way.
Councilmember Taylor?
No.
Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Consideration of adopting a resolution approving the fiscal year 2025 annual action plan for the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Program. Staff will provide a brief summary of the request. Ms. Melva Walker.
Good evening, Mayor Reed, Vice Mayor Feraldi, and members of City Council. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development requires the City of Lynchburg as an entitlement community for the receipt of the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Program funds to prepare, conduct a public hearing, and submit an annual action plan for the funds received from HUD. The plan outlines the needs, goals, and objectives for community development, including the housing and non-housing areas. The CDBG entitlement amount is $722,622 with $20 of reprogram funds, and the home program entitlement amount is $302,774 with recaptured funds of $5,834. The Grants Administration staff has prepared the fiscal year 25 plan, and it includes all of the required components and the recommended CDBG and home approved projects by City Council at the public hearing conducted on June 11th. The projects approved for continuation and implementation include the Diamond Hill Neighborhood Plan Phase 1 improvements, the Coordinated Homeless Intake and Access CHIA project, Extreme Weather Center, and under the home program, the development of affordable rental and homeownership housing units. A public notice was published stating that a draft of the proposed fiscal year 25 annual action plan was available for public review and comments. The public comment period began on June 7th and ends at the conclusion of the public hearing tonight. Prior to the meeting, the Grants Administration staff did not receive any written comments regarding the plan.
Thank you very much. I'll call you back up with questions. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Any voicemails from citizens?
There are none.
Okay, the public hearing is closed and the matter rests with council. May I have a motion?
I move.
Okay. Councilman Taylor?
Yes, I'm on the committee with Ms. Melva, and she worked hard to get these grants through, and we approved them, and I move that we pass it.
Yes, sir. Dr. Weiler?
Yes, thank you. I just want to commend again Melba Walker and her team for working on this project. The CDBG funds are so necessary for our community, for home development, for rental assistance, for affordable rentals. If you look at what the rental price is now, you need all the affordable rental you can find. So we definitely need programs like this. They support through so many with the CHIA program and Central Virginia Continuum of Care. Those programs are crucial to our homelessness population, so we can find a place for them to live and a place for them to find residential place for them to live, so they can be successful in their life. And also, it also has a lot of support services for them, such as job training and other services that they need to be more sustaining. So thank you for this information. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Any other comments or questions before we vote? Okay, let's vote.
Yes. Councilmember Hutchinson?
Yes.
Councilmember Missions?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ferraldi?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay. The next section is public comment. During the public comment, individual speakers have 3 minutes to speak, and those representing a group have 5 minutes to speak. Typically, City Council takes comments made during the public comment section off of the agenda under advisement and may refer concerns to the city manager for follow-up. Citizens often express conflicting and diverse positions regarding specific issue under consideration. To encourage citizen participation and to avoid intimidation to persons who may express sometimes unpopular opinions, applause, cheers, or jeers from the audience are not permitted. When appearing before City Council, citizens may not engage in behavior that intimidates or insults others, engage in disruptive behavior, use profanity or vulgar language, promote private business ventures, or campaign for office. We'll now hear from a group representative regarding council member conduct, Joe Meadows from the Citizens for Responsible Government. Please restate your name, a group represented, and locality of residence.
Hi, I'm speaking for the Citizens for Responsible Government, Lynchburg. My name is Joe, and I live here in the city of Lynchburg. Thank you, Mayor Reed and the Clerk of Council for the chance to speak this evening. The unprofessional behavior your citizens have seen from some members of council has got increasingly concerning over the last several months, culminating in the embarrassing display we all saw here last Wednesday, which as I see is continuing today. I really hope the people of Lynchburg are paying attention and decide to take our city in a different direction in November, because we clearly need it. To comment briefly on the temper tantrum thrown in council chambers last week, Marty, there is no conspiracy against Alexander or yourself. You really just look like a sore loser, and this is just more of the petulant and attention-seeking behavior by you that people are so tired of. Peter Alexander's lawsuit will be dismissed, just as the appeal of your censure was dismissed, and just like your lawsuit against the city for your very justified termination will also be dismissed. Since joining the city council, Marty, you have regularly bullied, harassed, and otherwise maligned city employees, other council members, and cities and citizens in an epic display of narcissism. When you tried to bully the deputy superintendent and witness in your upcoming trial on Facebook last month, however, you may have finally gone too far. The post directed to your followers was intended to intimidate a witness and literally included an example of your supporters bombarding that witness with phone calls and emails. Lynchburg police have referred your behavior to the FBI, and I really hope the government has the courage to prosecute you for it. And in your post, which likely violated federal law, of course you had to take a jab at transgender people, which brings me to the reason I originally intended to speak today. I'm here to confront you over your disgusting attacks against the queer community and what is starting to honestly seem like a really bizarre obsession with transgender people. You regularly spread false and, excuse me?
Point of order. Yes, we have rules of procedure that, I'm questioning if the speaker has gone beyond a reasonable standard of courtesy.
So the question is, Mr. Meadows, what?
Be impartial.
The question is whether the comments you're making are insulting. Okay, so what I would offer is when you make your statement, certainly you can criticize, but do not insult.
Okay, well, can somebody point out?
Well, actually, you're alleging that I committed a crime, which is defamation.
I believe that there's evidence that perhaps taken place, and that is not my opinion as a legal expert.
Madam Mayor?
Madam Mayor, I am insulted by Mr. Meadows.
Mr. Friedman.
Excuse me.
Violation of the rules of
One
procedure.
second. Mr. Friedman?
So what I would suggest is, Madam Mayor, simply advise the speaker, of the rule to refrain from insults on members, and then let
What
him
exactly
proceed.
did I say that was
Mr.
insulting?
Meadows.
Excuse me, Joe's fine, thank you.
Right. So just please make your comments towards council and just refrain from making any insulting comments.
What exactly did I say that was insulting?
I'm not exactly sure, but maybe just express your concerns about council in general, and refrain from legal accusations, I guess, if you can do that. And don't mention names. How about that? Refrain from names.
Gotcha.
Just say council member.
Some city council members regularly spread false and inflammatory information aimed at queer and especially trans people online. I wouldn't waste a minute of my time trying to counter every bit of hateful nonsense that you say and repost, but to summarize a response to your hateful rhetoric, I will simply quote the quite conservative 11th Circuit Court of Appeals when they said this just days ago in a decision over trans healthcare in Florida, and I quote, "Transgender opponents are of course free to hold their beliefs, but they are not free to discriminate against transgender individuals just for being transgender. In time, discrimination against transgender individuals will diminish just as racism and misogyny have diminished," end quote. Some of you punch down at vulnerable, marginalized people because you see it as politically advantageous. You and your hateful rhetoric will join the trash heap of history alongside racism and sexism too. But until then, please understand we will never be intimidated by people like you. Mayor Reed, some bigots on this council have cast blanket accusations at an entire group of people, including what statistics tell us are hundreds of your citizens, falsely claiming that transgender people are guilty of some horrendous acts. This language is dangerous, can be a motivator for real-world harm to innocent people, and it deserves a more forceful response from our mayor. While you certainly can't control what comes out of some deranged people's mouths, you can condemn it and discipline it. Mayor Reed's censure clearly did not work. The abhorrent things that some of council members have said about the queer community should have been enough. But now, potentially intimidating a witness in an upcoming trial certainly reaches the level of malfeasance described in the city charter and removal from office. This council has the power to and actually should expel council members that behave in this way. And if you can call people groomers on your Facebook page, you should have the courage to sit here and listen to someone criticize you.
The impartiality.
What a
here is
snowflake. And with that, I really appreciate the chance. I really appreciate the chance to address
Point of
you
order.
tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Missions, what is your point of order?
My point of order is the rules of procedure specifically state not related to his or her official duties. And the mayor allowed dialogue to continue, comment to continue, that has nothing to do with official duties.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but that decision is up to the presiding officer, and you didn't call your point of order until Mr. Meadows was near the conclusion of his
And again,
dialogue.
it was ignored, which is pretty obvious.
We'll now hear from a citizen regarding public safety. Margaret Johnson, please restate your name and locality of residence. Margaret Johnson? Okay. The next section is general business. This next section includes general items of new business, consideration of adopting a resolution approving City Council's rules of procedure. This item was presented to council during our business item briefings on June 25th, 2024. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion?
I move.
Okay, do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilman Taylor?
Rules and regulations.
You just want to speak to your motion?
No.
Or you're just agreeing that you're good with it?
Yes.
Okay. Vice Mayor Feroldi? Any comments? No? Okay, any discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Dolan?
No.
Councilmember Helgeson?
I'm trying to find, real quickly, if I can ask a question. I know we're in the middle of voting. But there are some items on there like the pikes and the stuff that we didn't add that in there by motion, so we're adopted. So I think the motion is to adopt what we had last year, correct?
Yes.
And that'll be voted for.
Is that the motion? I don't see any changes, that's why.
Yeah, there was just a change with regarding a date. That was a meeting that wasn't going to be there. There was proposed language change with regarding the polls and the people standing up, and we didn't adopt that in there. So that's what I'm assuming this is, so I will vote in
Just
favor
strike a
of it.
vote for a minute.
And let me try to help clarify the record.
Yes.
So there's a resolution that's before you, okay? For simplicity purposes, I didn't do the red line on the rules themselves. So the resolution shows what the changes would be in the, the proposed changes would be in the rules of procedure. So that resolution, it shows number 1, there is a 9, 10, and 11 being added to section 5-4A of the rules of procedure. Under section 2-1 of the rules of procedure, there would be a couple typographical changes. There would be the removal of August in those July, August, and December. And there's changing of the dates to say, and there will be no regular meeting on the second Tuesday during the month of August. However, on the fourth Tuesday of February, during the months of March and April, the council work session will be in the second floor training room, in summary. The other portions of the resolution talk about readopting the rules. Anything not inconsistent with this resolution remains the same. And it also adopts the time, places, and locations of the 2025 calendar year council meetings.
Can you start over then?
Okay.
And if we can talk about those, is that what you want to do too?
I don't know,
So what was the 5.4? I thought you said 5.4 was the...
So 5.4A is prohibited conduct.
Okay, gotcha.
And there's 9, 10, and 11 being proposed. 9 says it would be prohibited to use pickets, stakes, poles, staffs, or other similar items to display a sign, flag, poster, placard, or the like in the council chamber. Do you want to address them one by one, or just go through the whole one?
All I'm saying is there it is, just the change in the resolutions, gotcha. So part of that we talked about, I thought, was in our business item briefing, was that you could keep number 10. The others are kind of, it'd be incumbent upon the presiding officer to tell people they're blocking the exit, when that is actually done by the fire marshal or the police. Number 10 is obviously one that's nice because you're being a good citizen and not standing up and blocking. So I don't know how number 9 is on there, but number 10 I think is really easy. And then the rest of those changes.
I think number 9 is really, our chief of police felt a little more secure having that in there, based on some of the potential issues we could have.
Number 9, because that's required when permits are taken out.
So that is how usually demonstrations and permits are regulated, is when they issue a permit, they have guidelines that are specific to not having the stakes, the staffs, the pickets, obviously for safety reasons, if there are two opposing groups that, where tensions get too high and something may happen.
But I think we did discuss maybe striking was 11 regarding letting the fire marshal enforce the doorway. Fire marshals, yeah, correct. And the code being what we allowed to use for that purpose.
I thought that we discussed something about number 9 as well, because, you know, when you read this on its face, you know, somebody waves a little American flag, like the little, on a little stick, technically, you can say, oh, nope, can't have that. And then same thing,
Is
those
there
are
an-
flags displayed on poles right there beside us. And, you know, if we ever had a color guard, let's say we had a color guard from AC Glass or Heritage come in here, we'd have to suspend the rules to allow it. So it's,
Is there an exception in the permit requests for even things that significant? Do we know?
So I think each permit request is probably unique to the type of event, but that's my understanding is that when they do these demonstrations, you know, they don't permit placards to be signs to be on pickets or poles and stuff to be part of the demonstration itself. Now, if the point of the demonstration was to be a color guard, obviously that would defeat the purpose. So they would probably permit them to do a march if it was a color guard.
So shouldn't this be rewritten? Anything you could be, can be used as a weapon?
Let me ask you all this. What's your thoughts? And certainly I want to do what you all as a majority want to do. Certainly you all could proceed with the adoption and I can come back later with an additional rule to try to address this if you want to do that.
so, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So when I'm looking at number 10, display signs, flags, posters, placards, or alike in a manner that obstructs the view of a meeting attendee in the council chamber. That's going to essentially rule out 98% of somebody's ability to use a picket, stake, pole, staff to display said flag, sign, poster, or placard. Because if somebody's sitting up front and they use pickets or poles to hold up a sign or a flag, it's going to obstruct the view of this person behind them. If you strike 10 in its entirety, but then that would allow is people lining the walls where they're not in the way, like we had the gentleman back in the corner with the full-size Israeli flag, would be acceptable. I kind of see it as number 10 essentially for the intent of what we're trying to do pretty much covers it. This isn't like a parade situation where people are standing and marching, walking, the same requirements. You know, people are sitting in essentially what looks like church pews. And I just feel like if you can't display a sign, flag, poster, or placard in a manner that obstructs the view of a meeting attending the council chamber, you're probably not doing it on a picket, stake, pole, or staff in front of them. That's how I see it.
So for expeditiousness, could we then just, from the motion, strike 9 and 10, and then we could come back, or not, excuse me, 9 and 11, and then at a later date, we can revisit if there's some wordage. Would you accept that as a friendly amendment, Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Yes, good, thank you.
So just for purposes of the record, the resolution is being proposed for adoption with the amendment that 9 be stricken from number 1 and 11 be stricken from number 1. The only amendment to that section being the number 10, which would be the new number 9, essentially, in our rules.
Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Everybody feel comfortable leaving it as is? Anyone have any concerns? Okay, well, if you're okay with all of them, but are you okay with the amendment of just having the 10 being now the only thing?
No.
You're not okay with that?
No.
Dr. Wilder?
I'm fine with it, the way it is.
Vice Mayor? Okay, it seems like we have a majority that's okay with it. All right, so I currently, I had you strike the vote, so I need a new motion for this kind of amended.
Friendly amendment.
Or friendly amendment. So should I just, can I vote as it is then?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and vote then.
Councilmember Dolan? No. Councilor Hevison?
Yes.
Councilor Mischins?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Just for our record, what was adopted? For the record, what was adopted is the resolution. It was, number 1 was amended to reflect that 9 and 11 were stricken, 10 was kept, but became the new number 9 under our rules.
Correct. Yes.
Yes, that was all included as well. All the other portions were included.
Correct, thank you, okay. Consideration of adopting a resolution approving the city's participation in the proposed settlement of opioid-related claims against Kroger and its related corporate entities, and directing the city attorney to execute the documents necessary to effectuate the city's participation in the settlement. Okay.
Second.
Okay, great. Vice Mayor? Councilman Taylor? No? Any discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Councilmember Dolan? Yes. Councilmember Hildeson? Yes. Councilmember Mischins?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, this meeting's adjourned. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be held on August 13th, 2024 at 4 p.m. in Council Chamber.